Welcome back to 34 Orgasms, the podcast where we talk about real intimacy, not just what happens in bed, but what happens inside. In today's episode, we meet Linda, the woman who learned to receive. She spent over 20 years in a relationship where sex was silent, scripted, and one sided. She didn't know how to ask for more. She didn't even know she was allowed to. But something shifted, and her story isn't just about sex. It's about awakening. It's about reclaiming the body, the voice, and the right to say, I want more. This is Linda's story, but it might be yours too. She was 16 when she met him. He was 25. They became a couple, not because she knew what she wanted, but because she didn't know she was allowed to choose. They stayed together for over 20 years, built a life, had 3 children, but never a language. When he touched her, it was always the same motion, the same goal. In, out, release, done. She lay there, not broken, just untouched. Talking about it wasn't an option. He didn't know how. And eventually, neither did she. I don't know how many times I've heard stories like this. Women who stayed for years, knowing something was missing, but not having the words. And men who never learned anything else, who think sex is about performance, never dared to ask, how does it feel for you? Linda says she's no longer surprised that suicide rates are higher among men than women. It's not the feelings that kill, it's the absence of them. She talks to her sons now about consent, about safety, about the courage to say, I'm scared, I need something. She says, women talk, and they don't always talk about sex, but they do talk about life. But men, they don't. So they break in silence. And for Linda, she met Nicholas, a man who could talk, who asked questions, who listened, who stayed, even when things got uncomfortable. And they've been together now for 7 years. They live far apart, but it works. Maybe not in spite of the distance, but maybe because of it. Because it forces them to meet in words before they meet in body. She used to think something was wrong with her, that she couldn't come an orgasm, that she was broken. But Niklas said, it's not that you can't. You just haven't been met the right way. And with him, and when she really came, it was as if something ancient was released in her body. Not just pleasure, but confirmation. You are not broken. You are alive. To you listening now, woman or man, maybe you recognize yourself. Maybe you've carried the same doubt, the same longing. To you, Linda wants to say this. Breathe, let go, lower the pressure, lower the expectations on yourself, on your partner. Be here in this moment. Your body is not a problem to solve. Your pleasure is not a performance. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. That's where it begins. That's where you begin. And that's where you'll be found. The language of pleasure. Today, Linda and Nicholas have found their rhythm. Not a technique, but a presence. Where they play, they explore, not to impress, but to meet each other fully. And she says it right. I can't get enough of sex. I want it, I crave it. And sometimes he can't keep up. He laughs. You said you had trouble coming. And there it is, a truth many don't see. Men say they want a woman who loves sex, until they actually meet one that really loves sex. But it's not about quantity, it's about presence, about being seen, about being open, hungry, shameless, and safe. They've explored every nuance, her clitoris, her G spot, her A spot, squirting orgasms, even anal orgasms, something she never thought was possible for her. They've used a spike mat, a blindfold, a rolling pin with metal points. Not pain for pain's sake, but stimulation that opens her up, that makes her feel more, deeper, truer. And sometimes she says no to certain touches, not because they are wrong, but because they're not her path. Niklas listens, not just with his ears, but with his full presence. They found a rhythm, a glance that says everything, a breath that means yes, a hand that pauses to feel, to check, to stay. Linda says it best. Guys, slow down, ask, watch. See when she's truly enjoying herself and help her go all the way. So before we wrap up, I want to bring in someone whose insights always add a deep layer to these conversations. And I'm happy to invite back Britta Kunze, who is a sexologist, relationship and intimacy coach. And she's been listening closely to the story about Linda. Nice to see you again, Britta.
Hi, Henrik.
So, from your point of view, what are the key takeaways from the story about Linda?
Well, Linda represents a very common story of somebody being in a very long-term relationship, of a woman not being able to communicate her needs and never having learned that it's possible, that it's about her. And then after sort of going out of this long-term relationship where sexuality was not satisfying, but where it was only presumably for her partner's pleasure, that she, in a new relationship, finds a new access to herself and to her sensuality. Yeah.
It's a beautiful journey she made. So
It is. And I celebrate every woman and also every man who go on this journey. And I think especially if you've been in this long-term relationship where you experienced that sexuality was not your sexuality, and then coming to a new relationship and doing the work and then seeing how it can shift, I think that must be beautiful, especially after having been for so long. Like, I think she was 20 years with her partner, right?
yes,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. What can men learn from this to become better partners?
I think in the story with Linda, you said that sex was about this in out release for her partner. And what men can learn is, I think that's probably what men also get taught, how sexuality is looks for them. And what men can learn is that, well, first of all, I'd say that for most women, that's not satisfying. This is not how female sexuality works at its depth. To go for peak orgasms, I mean, even if a woman can hold up with it, and some women can, but still, neither the man nor the woman will experience this deeper, more transcendent kind of sexuality where it's not about in, out, and release, but where it's really about going on this journey together. And so, yeah, the main takeaway for men is, and I say that now from the standpoint also of a sexologist, is that really for most women, it's not going to be satisfying this way. And also for you as a man, it's not going to be satisfying. There is a whole other level of sexuality that awaits. If you, maybe let's call it, if you surrender more to the probably female path of sexuality.
We've spoken a lot about slowing down and being more present in our previous podcast as well. So I think this is something that is quite important for men to realize.
Yeah, slowing down and being more present, and also seeing what happens if you learn to, and this is more like the Taoist or the Tantric path of sexuality. What is if you learn to separate orgasm and ejaculation from each other? Because then you will be able to dwell much, much longer in pleasure. And you break the cycle of in, out, release, or in, release, out. Yeah.
Which I think most men would love. Oh,
Yeah. I mean, we know that it might take some time and some learning needed on a very physical level. And then if you learn a new skill, it takes time. And in the beginning, it might not be so rewarding to learn it. It takes some, how do you call it? Tolerance towards frustration.
yeah, exactly.
But then beyond that, there is a whole, as I say, there's a whole other level of sexuality opening up.
Yeah. And what can women who are in similar situations like Linda take with them and also into their own relationships?
I'd say it's this: when your libido fades away, it might not be about you and your libido, it might just be about you not experiencing sex worth wanting. And so, because I think that's how Linda felt, right? That something is wrong with her. And what you, I mean, I already mentioned that, but I think that if you're a woman, probably this in, release, out sex only, if you
Yeah.
only experience that, it might make you shut down or go numb. And so, if sexuality is not working for you in the relationship you're in, it's really about standing up and trying to change it within this relationship and being like, hey, this. So not coming from this perspective of there's something wrong with me that needs to be fixed, but really being like, hey, this doesn't work for me. I don't even know what it's about, but we are both in this together. So let's look at it, or let's change it. Or what women can also take away is this experience, which a lot of my clients had, that if within the relationship you are, things cannot be changed because probably there is no openness from the other person to really look at things, or because there is just so much hurt and disconnection that took place over so many years. So sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step out of this relationship, and you might find a partner with whom sexuality and this communication and feeling safe and all of that goes so much deeper than you've ever imagined. And suddenly you find out, and this is what Linda found out, right? Like, oh, I can have orgasms in couple and partner sexuality, and it's this deep transformation taking place.
I think from what I learned, from our previous conversation in our podcast we made, um, the one thing you said there that I think was really beautiful is that first of all, the body never lies, and there's nothing wrong with the body, and it's all coming from the mind and the emotions you're sitting with.
Mm.
I
Yeah,
thought that was very beautiful.
yeah. And so bringing it down to this topic, for example, of orgasm, if you don't orgasm, in 99.9%, it's not about your body not being able to orgasm. It's about most of the time you not feeling emotionally safe, or your body not being touched the way that it needs to be touched, or you never having been able to learn to communicate your needs, to say no when you feel no and to say yes when you feel yes. So yeah. And this is probably the base, like the most important takeaway for women, that usually it's never about our capacity to feel pleasure or to orgasm, that it's usually about these other factors. And as you just said, the body never lies. So what happens if you start to trust your body and listen to it?
That's the exciting journey.
Yeah.
Thank you, Britta. This episode isn't just about pleasure. It's about healing and reclaiming your body, your voice, your right to feel. And in the end, it's about something even more radical, the courage to receive. Because for so many women, receiving isn't easy. We've been taught to give, to please, to endure. But Linda reminds us, receiving isn't selfish, it's sacred. So if you're ever felt like it's too late, like your body is numb, like your voice has faded, know this. It's never too late. Your body remembers. Your pleasure waits for your return. And presence changes everything. So these texts that I'm reading out to you is something that will be collected in a book. And then they will be even more detailed and more colorful, if you will. In our next episode, we will meet Andrea. She's a woman shaped by shame, abuse, and religious control, but also by courage, by fire, by a voice that refused to be silenced. Her body once carried only fear, where it now carries power. I look forward to seeing you next time on 34 Orgasms.